Okay, let's unpack this. We are going deep today,
Yeah.
but we aren't chasing, the latest trend or some fleeting headline. We're plunging into something far more ancient, far more profound, and really utterly foundational to human flourishing. We're talking about the nature and necessity of knowledge, known classically as al-ilm.
Right.
And for you, our listener, this is about moving entirely beyond the modern view, where knowledge is just, I don't know, accumulated data, a set of skills on a resume, or something you just click on your phone.
It's a complete paradigm shift, isn't it?
It is.
What's fascinating here is that we're drawing from excerpts of a really profound classical text, the splendor of knowledge and the divine essence of science. And this tradition, well, it doesn't treat knowledge as some neutral utility.
At all.
It assigns it this immense spiritual and existential weight, making its acquisition, the primary duty of human existence.
Exactly. Our mission today is to take these classical insights and synthesize how this tradition defines, values, and essentially mandates the pursuit of al-ilm. We really need to get why they saw it as the highest form of human endeavor.
And the initial definition they provide is immediate and just foundational. It sets the scope incredibly high right from the start. Knowledge, al-ilm, is defined as the perception of a thing as it truly is in reality.
Well, that one definition, the one phrase immediately changes the goalpost. It's not about just approximating reality or having a functional theory.
No, not at all.
It's about grasping the intrinsic absolute truth of something. That sounds incredibly demanding.
It is demanding, but it clarifies the ultimate objective. And the source clarifies that this scope is dualistic. It covers both the observable world, the tangibles, the things we can perceive with our senses.
The solemnous sounds.
Exactly. And at the same time, the unseen realities, the metaphysical truths, the pluses.
So a botanist studying a flower is engaged in ilms just as much a theologian studying divine attributes.
Precisely.
Because both are seeking to perceive something as it truly is, whether it's visible or invisible.
Yes, that duality elevates the concept immediately. Knowledge isn't just confined to, say, empirical observation. It's about grasping the absolute truth of all existence, visible and invisible, material and spiritual. It's a total system of understanding.
And once we accept that definition, what role does the text assign to this ilm in human life? It seems to be prioritized, above everything else.
It's presented as an absolute existential necessity. The classical texts are not shy about using powerful, evocative metaphors.
They're not.
They describe knowledge poetically as the life of hearts, the food of souls, and the light of minds and senses.
The life of hearts. I think that metaphor is so profound because it implies that ignorance is a form of spiritual death.
That is the core implication, yeah.
If the person is physically alive.
Absolutely. And here is where it gets really important for you listening.
Yep.
The sources stress that knowledge must precede action. That
core insight is crucial. In our modern society, we prioritize action, efficiency, execution. Just do it.
Right.
But the classical wisdom just flips that script. Understanding has to come first. How does this deep dive justify that radical prioritization?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it means that virtuous, successful, and effective action is just impossible without proper understanding first. If your perception of reality is flawed, then any action you take,
no matter how well-intentioned.
Exactly. No matter how earnest, it will be misguided. It could potentially cause more harm than benefit. You can't effectively perfect your life, fix society, or fulfill your spiritual duties without the guiding light of ilm. Knowledge provides the map. Action is the journey.
It's the moral and intellectual framework.
Yeah.
So the text is saying, don't just do things. You have to know why you're doing them, know what the reality is you're acting upon, and know how to do them correctly.
Absolutely. The source affirms that whoever attracts good through knowledge and then beautifies that knowledge with appropriate action has attained their desired end. Knowledge is the indispensable foundation. Everything else is built on it.
Okay, let's turn now to the divine mandate that fundamentally establishes this priority, detailing how knowledge grants this ultimate honor. The texts recount the pivotal narrative of Adam.
Yes.
The moment he was taught the names by God, that imparting of knowledge was the core event that led to his unique honor and the mandatory prostration of the angels.
This point is absolutely critical to the classical understanding of humanity's purpose. Adam's superiority wasn't based on physical attributes, not on speed or strength, but solely on the specific, structured, and comprehensive knowledge he received. The knowledge of the names.
And that's fascinating. Why the names? It suggests the knowledge wasn't just raw data, but the capacity for categorization, for organization, and understanding the intrinsic nature of things.
Yes, it symbolizes the knowledge of definition, classification, function. It means understanding the nature of all creation, the divine curriculum, if you will, and that immediately made Adam worthy of the ultimate recognition.
Compelling the submission of all creation.
Right, both material and spiritual. This established ilm as the highest mark of honor that was bestowed upon humanity.
And the text uses a powerful counterexample to reinforce this.
The arrogance of Iblis, or Satan.
Right.
Iblis's failure is rooted in a fundamental misjudgment of value. He refused to prostrate because he privileged his material creation fire over Adam's, which was earth. And, crucially, he rejected the honor that came from the knowledge Adam possessed.
That's a deeply resonant idea. It wasn't just disobedience. It was a kind of intellectual snobbery, a failure to recognize that matter is less valuable than intellect.
Precisely. That failure to acknowledge the honor granted through ilm is what turned him into an adversary to all humanity. Therefore, the text advises that to escape his evil, to escape being misled, you have to acquire the knowledge that benefits and elevates you.
So knowledge acts as both a shield and a sword in this eternal conflict.
It does.
And to acquire this honor and protection, the source highlights that we were gifted specific instruments. The text references the scripture, Surah An-Nahl, noting that God brought us forth knowing nothing, but then gave us hearing, sight, and the heart-mind.
The hahatai.
Yes, the Afida. And it was given that you may be grateful.
This enumeration is extremely intentional, we have to ask. Why those three? Hearing and sight are the primary external sensory inputs for gathering data about the tangible world. They are the initial collectors.
But the crucial link, the processing center, is the Afida.
Exactly. The Afida, often translated as the heart, mind, or intellect, is the internal processing center, where that sense data is converted into understanding. It's where spiritual insight resides.
So it's not just the physical organ.
No, it's the seat of the soul's comprehension. So knowledge acquisition is established as this three-part human endowment: observing, sight, receiving, hearing, and internalizing or comprehending with the Afida, all designed for that specific purpose of attaining true knowledge.
And expressing gratitude for the capacity to know.
Yes. That shift from raw sensory input to true comprehension happens in the Afida. This is where mere data becomes meaningful knowledge.
And speaking of the beneficial nature of knowledge, the source includes some powerful poetic evidence on its protective role. There's one quote that asserts that knowledge attracts all good and repels evil.
That's the one. Knowledge attracts all good, all of it, and repels from its children evil and affliction. This speaks to the holistic effect of knowledge. It implies that true knowledge leads almost inexorably to moral clarity.
When you know the reality of a situation, you naturally choose the path of virtue.
You avoid the pitfalls of heedlessness or poor judgment. It's like spiritual armor.
But the text doesn't shy away from a deeply harsh truth about the unlearned, does it? It uses a very intense comparison to emphasize the civilizing function of ilm.
It does. It makes a profound distinction between potential humanity and realized humanity. The unlearned human one who lives just by instinct and emotion, neglecting their intellectual and spiritual potential, is likened to a wild, predatory animal.
A wild animal.
Yes. The text states that only through learning, when the person works and benefits and reasons and profits and gains, only then does one become truly useful, rational, and beneficial.
That is a staggering statement. It implies that being truly human requires active learning. We're born with the potential for reason, but ilm is what activates it.
Exactly. It's what makes us productive members of a society. It implies that civilization, ethics, and true utility are constructed entirely upon this foundation of al-ilm. Without it, humans are subject to their basest instincts.
Like a wild beast.
Precisely.
And this theme is really powerfully reinforced by the poetry of Ahmed Shawki, which is cited in the source, describing how a youth who is taught knowledge rises and becomes a benefit.
Right, a source of pride for his people. And contrast that, and it's a stark picture, if the youth is left ignorant, he becomes a source of harm and blame, a detriment to his community.
And this pursuit, therefore, is what elevates the seeker to the highest possible degree. The ultimate honor, spiritually speaking, is found in that statement that the learned are considered the inheritors of the prophets.
inheritors of the prophets.
I mean, that is an enormous title.
Yeah.
It suggests that scholars are tasked with continuing the essential work of the prophets: guidance, clarity, education.
Yes, it means they are the legatees of divine guidance. Their knowledge isn't just intellectual property, it's a sacred trust. And this is why the pursuit of knowledge is given such immense spiritual and communal value. It makes scholars the keepers of the torch of truth.
Okay, now that we've established the spiritual necessity of al-ilm, let's pivot to a very material concern: the value proposition. In Section 2, the classical texts draw an incredibly stark contrast between knowledge and wealth, especially for an audience that's always focused on worldly gain. So, how does ilm stack up against mal?
The fundamental contrast is simple, yet it's profoundly challenging to our modern sensibilities. Wealth, Altlin, is described as finite, something that vanishes and perishes.
It requires constant protection.
Right, it's subject to decay or theft. Knowledge, conversely, remains. It benefits you eternally and is inherently secure.
This eternal nature makes knowledge an unfading treasure. The sources quote those famous verses from Abu al-Aswad al-Duwali that perfectly capture this security. Knowledge is a treasure and a hoard that has no end. A man may collect wealth and soon it is stolen from him, leading to humiliation. But the collector of knowledge is always envied for it and does not fear its loss.
That phrase, does not fear its loss, that's the absolute key difference. Think of wealth in modern terms. It's vulnerable to market crashes, inflation, cyber theft. It demands constant vigilance. Right. But knowledge, once you've internalized it, is part of your intellectual and spiritual capital. It's portable, indestructible, and it self-compounds. You take it with you everywhere.
And the quote mentions being envied for knowledge. That sounds like a positive, productive kind of envy, not the destructive envy we associate with material wealth.
That's a profound distinction. Envy over wealth leads to conflict, humiliation, and war, as the text implies. But envy over knowledge, that desire to possess the virtue or clarity of another scholar, that's an engine for personal growth.
It inspires you to learn more.
Which ultimately benefits everyone. Knowledge makes the seeker wealthy in a way that is utterly secure.
And this idea of relentless pursuit leads us directly to that famous classical proverb about the two people who are never satisfied.
The seeker of knowledge and the seeker of the world.
Right. Oshio nupil is mad.
What's fascinating here is that the text places both pursuits under the banner of insatiability manhuman. But the implication is clear. Only one leads to an eternally accumulating benefit.
So the ambition of the knowledge seeker is framed positively.
Yes, they're constantly extending their eternal legacy. The ambition of the worldly seeker is often seen as this dangerous, self-consuming obsession that ultimately fails because the object of their desire, the world, is fleeting.
So it's not the desire for more that is the fault, but the object of that desire.
Precisely. One accumulation multiplies virtue. The other multiplies vulnerability. And Imam Ali, who's cited in the sources, he summarizes the benefits. He said knowledge is the life of hearts from sins, the light of the eyes from blindness, and the strength of bodies for construction.
It's an intellectual, moral, and physical force multiplier.
It is. And importantly, the text argues that knowledge isn't just a spiritual key, it is also the ultimate source of worldly power and advancement. It bridges the gap between piety and practical reality.
Okay, so how does it do that?
Well, the text is very clear that ilm is the engine of technological mastery. It notes explicitly how knowledge enabled human material advancements reaching space, creating sophisticated tools for power, including advanced weaponry like tanks, planes, and missiles.
So the classical scholar recognized that science, the systematic study of reality, confers immense power.
Yes. This is where the synthesis of worldly and spiritual power takes place. The text argues that knowledge combines truth and power, happiness and sovereignty. It's what enabled man to harness water, air, the seas, electricity. It is the mastery of the physical world.
This practical application of ilm is what allows humanity to subdue nature.
It's symbolized by the phrase that the learned person becomes like one who puts the ring of Solomon on his finger. They acquire this immense, almost magical control over the elements. The knowledge, therefore, raises the low to the high.
So if knowledge is the light and the key to sovereignty, ignorance jal is the inverse. It's a total calamity. And the text uses highly evocative, almost visceral language to describe this disease.
It does. Ignorance is described using intensely negative language. The deadliest disease, the most malicious friend, and the worst of calamities. It's presented not merely as a vacuum of information, but as an active, destructive force.
And I found the description of the societal consequence of ignorance particularly potent, the one attributed to al-Rasafi.
The transformation of the community.
Yes.
That's a striking metaphor for complete societal regression. If ignorance takes hold of a country, you will see its lions transformed into monkeys.
Wow.
The lion symbolizes nobility, strength, capability, the best of society. If that society succumbs to y'all, those noble elements are reduced to something foolish, base, and powerless. The monkeys. It signals the complete decay of civilization when knowledge fades.
Often the worst kind of ignorance is the one that's self-satisfied, isn't it?
Absolutely. The text notes that ignorance breeds arrogance and a lack of perspective, best exemplified by the poet's chilling warning. Is it not a calamity that you are ignorant and that you do not know that you do not know?
That's the double failure being lost.
Right.
Refusing to even acknowledge you need a map.
Right.
But the sources reserve a specific, severe condemnation for a particular group. The learned who do not act on their knowledge.
Yes. They know the map, but they refuse to travel.
Right.
That's where the ethical stakes get incredibly high. The condemnation of the scholar who fails to act on what they know is stated to be greater than that of idol worshippers.
That is a staggering claim. Why? Why such a severe judgment? Why is the inactive scholar worse off than someone whose fundamental beliefs are just wrong?
Because knowledge brings with it a deeper and inescapable responsibility. Idol worship is a failure of perception. It's a darkness. But if you have the light, the truth, and you refuse to walk by it, your failure is willful. Your blindness is worse than someone who never saw the light at all.
So the knowledge itself becomes a proof against you.
Exactly. The source material emphasizes that knowledge that is not acted upon is a proof against the knower on the day of judgment. It becomes a burden, not a blessing if it's left inert.
That gives you a real sense of the seriousness with which these classical scholars approach the integration of intellectual and moral life. It's not enough to be smart. You must be good with that smartness.
Precisely. Intellectual brilliance without moral application is a dangerous liability.
Okay, let's pivot now to Section 3, the path to acquisition. If knowledge is this supreme dualistic treasure, spiritual and material, how do we, the seekers, get it? Imam al-Shafi'i famously listed 6 requirements for success.
Right, this is the classic curriculum for the student, the Talib al-Ilm. These requirements are the blueprint for the serious student. They form a comprehensive philosophy of learning.
So what are they?
The 6 are, first, intelligence, the foundational ability to absorb. Second, eagerness, that ambition and intense desire to learn. Third, diligence, effort, hard work, perseverance, sleepless nights.
Okay.
Fourth, sustenance, provision, the financial means to sustain your study. Fifth, companionship of a teacher. And finally, long duration, patience and time.
That's fascinating because it combines these intrinsic qualities like intelligence and eagerness with really practical external requirements. Money, a teacher, time. Why is sustenance so high on the list?
It shows a profound realism about the academic journey. Learning is a full-time, resource-intensive endeavor. If the student is constantly distracted by the need to earn their basic living,
their attention is fragmented.
Exactly. Their energy is fragmented. Bulgha is the provision that frees the mind to concentrate entirely on the task of ilm. It acknowledges that true scholarship requires some level of economic stability.
But the source material makes a critical observation about this list, noting that al-Shafi'i forgot to mention a 7th, absolutely crucial element.
That's right. The critical addition is health.
Health.
Health. Why is health added as a primary aid to study? We usually think of health as a personal concern, not a scholarly requirement.
Because without sound health, the other 6 factors are severely constrained, particularly ijtihad, diligence, and tul zaman, long duration. The text states this is something that 2 scholars do not disagree upon. That's a strong statement.
It is. Consider the rigors of classical scholarship. Long hours, travel across harsh environments to meet teachers, poor accommodation, intense mental concentration, the physical capacity to endure those long hours of study, to travel without succumbing to disease, is absolutely fundamental.
A sickly body can't support a dedicated mind for the long term.
It can't. It demands a kind of holistic discipline. And once the knowledge begins to be acquired, the process of handling it has stages. Sufyan outlined 4 crucial steps that move knowledge from the ear out to the world.
Okay, so these stages map the journey from raw input to application. Let's walk through those.
It begins with listening, which is passive reception, and then hearing, which implies active, attentive reception. You move from just being present to truly focusing the afida. Then comes the crucial step of memorizing.
Memorization is often neglected today, but in classical learning, it was non-negotiable, wasn't it?
It was the necessary storage for the knowledge to become internal and accessible. From memorization, you move to the core action, working with it. Kanesh. As we established, knowledge without action is a proof against the knower.
And the final stage.
Spreading it, disseminating the knowledge to others. The act of teaching and sharing forces the scholar to organize, test, and deepen their own understanding. It completes the virtuous cycle.
This entire journey, all 7 requirements, all 5 stages, it requires immense discipline. The poetry in the sources emphasizes that you can't seek honor and sleep at night.
Right. It uses that powerful analogy that perfectly encapsulates the necessary sacrifice. If you seek something immensely valuable and rare, you have to take immense risk and endure great hardship. He who seeks pearls must dive into the sea.
So you have to be willing to endure the darkness, the pressure, the sleepless nights, the metaphorical dive to get anything truly valuable.
Precisely. The knowledge itself is the pearl, which means the effort required is proportional to the treasure sought. You have to earn the light.
And this strenuous journey demands a consistent, trustworthy guide. The teacher, al-muallim. The sources give the teacher immense respect.
A crucial role. They are likened to a physician. The teacher and the physician, both of them, do not give advice if they are not honored. The physician cures the body. The teacher cures the soul's ignorance.
So if you disrespect the teacher, you deny yourself the remedy for your ignorance.
Exactly. Just as disrespecting a doctor makes their medical advice ineffective.
The source even provides that striking anecdote of Alexander the Great about the teacher's honor.
Right. Alexander reportedly honored his teacher, Aristotle, more than his own father. When asked why, he explained that the father causes the fleeting temporary life, the father of the drop, while the teacher causes the lasting life, the father of the soul.
Father of the soul.
Father of the soul. It elevates the act of teaching to an almost spiritual rebirth.
That is profound. The teacher is responsible for your ultimate permanent success. Given this high status, al-Shafi's advice to the student about enduring hardship is timeless and uncompromising.
It's stark, but necessary. Whoever did not taste the bitterness of learning for an hour will swallow the humiliation of ignorance all his life. The pain of study is temporary. The shame of ignorance is permanent.
And there's an even harsher line, isn't there, about those who miss out on learning in their youth.
Yes, that anyone who missed that opportunity should be considered spiritually dead. Then offer 4 funeral prayers over him for his death.
Wow. A high-stakes way of saying.
Yeah.
Use your time effectively. Now, the student must be diligent, but the source is also fiercely clear on the teacher's primary duty: integrity, being a moral role model.
Absolutely. The integrity of the teacher is paramount because their knowledge is only as effective as their character. If the teacher doesn't practice what they preach, the whole system of transmission fails. The warning poem explicitly cautions, "Do not forbid a character trait while doing the like of it. A great shame is upon you if you do."
That's critical. A teacher who is, say, unjust but teaches justice will find their lesson just ignored because the contradiction is too glaring.
Exactly. The knowledge imparted will also be fundamentally flawed, or as the poetry says, if the teacher is unjust or blinded, the insights will come out squint-eyed. The instruction cannot transcend the instructor's character.
Finally, the text details the differences in the process of learning based on age, which provides really practical advice for seekers at any point in life.
Right. Childhood is primarily the stage of instruction and implantation, ADA. Knowledge acquired then is described as being like engraving on stone, Crowley's C.
Because the heart and mind are pure and receptive.
Exactly. A child can memorize extensively even if comprehension is limited, and they won't forget what they've preserved because of the purity of their mental slate.
While adulthood is defined by comprehension and understanding, and this provides necessary encouragement, it's never truly too late to learn.
Right. The text cites the example of the prophet's companions who often learned as elders, proving that high rank and wisdom can still be attained later in life.
But there's a practical caveat for adults.
There is. The text cites the poet who suggested, "Drawing on water is the study of knowledge in old age." While learning is always possible, the foundational embedding of wisdom, that unshakable memorization, is undeniably easier in youth.
So the advice is to pursue knowledge diligently at every stage, playing to the strengths of your age.
Exactly.
Okay, now we pivot to section 4, exploring the ultimate outcome of ilm, If we follow this arduous path and gain knowledge, what is the fruit? The sources state that the ultimate fruit of knowledge is piety and awe, or kasiyya.
Absolutely. The verse cited is conclusive and serves as the ultimate justification for the entire pursuit. Only those who have knowledge among his servants fear God.
Right. Kasi is not base terror of punishment. It's a profound, informed reverence, a recognition of magnificent power, creative depth, and flawless order that compels the knowledgeable person toward humility. That distinction is vital. It's the difference between being afraid of a tiger because it might eat you and being filled with awe when you understand the terrifying complexity of its biological structure.
Exactly. It's an awe born of understanding. And crucially, the text interprets al-ulama, the learned here, very broadly, countering any narrow, purely theological interpretation.
This is a vital point of expansion. Who exactly qualifies as al-ulama in this context?
The source argues that al-ulama encompasses scholars of Sharia, law, and Tabi'a, nature science. And the reason for this inclusive definition is critical. The verse about fear immediately follows descriptions of complex natural phenomena.
What kind of phenomena?
It talks about God sending rain, producing fruits of differing colors, the varied colors of mountains, white, red, dark, black rocks, as well as the varying colors of people and animals.
So the implication is stunningly modern in its scope. It means that the person who dedicates their life to studying geology, biology, astronomy, or meteorology, the sciences of nature, is directly studying the signs of God's power.
Yes. Their research leads directly to that awe, making the physical scientist one of the ulama in this context. The text emphasizes that those scholars, both religious and scientific, are the ones who truly understand the magnitude of the Creator's power.
They're all reading the same book, just different chapters.
The Book of Revelation and the Book of Nature, yes.
And this recognition of the divine creative order leads us directly to defining the divine attributes that are the ultimate source of all knowledge. We have al-alim.
Al-alim, the knowing, possesses complete, eternal knowledge. His knowledge is infinite, encompassing the visible and the invisible. It's not just observational knowledge, it's determinative knowledge. It dictates what was, what is, what will be, and crucially, what would have been if alternative scenarios existed.
And the second attribute highlighted is al-care. What does this add to the concept of knowing?
Al-care is the all-aware or the informed. While al-alim covers the totality of knowledge, al-care emphasizes penetration. His knowledge encompasses the inner realities and hidden secrets, as well as the apparent. He knows the minutest, most hidden detail.
So al-alim is the panoramic view, and al-care is the microscopic, penetrating awareness of hidden intention in reality.
Precisely. It assures the seeker that nothing is hidden, nothing is forgotten, and nothing is trivial. And this awareness then sets up the dramatic comparison between human capacity for knowledge and the divine source.
Right, the vast qualitative gulf. Let's detail the 4 key differences the text specifies, because this comparison is the ultimate humility check.
We can start with scope. Divine knowledge is infinite. Human knowledge is inherently and necessarily finite. As the decree says, end of knowledge you have been granted only a little. We're just tiny vessels trying to scoop the ocean.
The second difference is source. Our knowledge is always gained. It's derived from the senses, from thought, from instruction.
Whereas divine knowledge is intrinsic, necessary, and inherent. It's not gained from thought or sense perception. Third is the nature of the knowledge. Divine knowledge is necessary, flawless, impossible to lose. He is not overtaken by slumber or sleep.
And conversely, our human knowledge is so volatile. We forget things the second we walk out of a room, we misremember.
Exactly. Our knowledge is volatile, subject to error, and easily forgotten. And finally, focus. God is not distracted. He knows everything simultaneously, perfectly. Human focus is inherently limited and easily distracted.
The cumulative difference here is immense. And realizing this is the point of the whole exercise, isn't it? This profound distinction leads to the practical outcome.
Yes, the fruit of knowing the divine knower. This knowledge necessitates a complete restructuring of your life around the principle of muraqabah, fearing and observing him. It compels the learner to constant humility and continuous improvement.
Because if you truly know that God is al-alim and al-care, that every hidden intention, every small dishonesty, every neglected duty is fully known, it compels you to apply your knowledge with the utmost sincerity.
It becomes the ultimate moral driving force. And this humility also manifests in the mandate of seeking knowledge from others when you don't possess it yourself. The sources cite the instruction to overcome ignorance by asking experts.
This is a fundamental societal instruction. You have a moral duty to defer to expertise.
Exactly. The source cites the instruction. Ask the people of the remembrance if you do not know. If you're not an expert in a field, you have a duty, a religious obligation to consult those who are. This ensures actions are based on knowledge, not guesswork or ego.
And this leads directly to a serious prohibition against speaking or giving verdicts, or fatwa, without knowledge.
This is a profound ethical boundary. The source cites the prohibition against speaking concerning God what you do not know, and the text delivers a very stark warning. The sin of an ignorant verdict falls upon the one who pronounced it.
So if a person asks for guidance and gets flawed, ignorant advice, the intellectual authority who gave that advice bears the weight of the resulting sin.
Precisely. Whoever is given a verdict without knowledge, the sin falls upon the one who pronounced the verdict. The responsibility for misleading others is immense. The lesson here is that humility in the face of ignorance, just by saying, I do not know, is itself a learned virtue.
It protects your integrity and protects the community from harm. This entire deep dive makes it incredibly clear that al-ilm is viewed not just as a tool for personal success, but as the foundational mechanism for spiritual elevation, societal health, and personal integrity.
To summarize this immense deep dive, we've seen that knowledge, al-ilm, is the light that rescues the soul from the dark calamity of ignorance. It transforms humans from wild potential into rational moral actors and acts as an eternal, unstealable treasure.
And it's the root of both piety and worldly power, linking the awe derived from studying nature with the clarity of law. The path to this knowledge is difficult, requiring diligence, good teachers who lead by example, and above all, time, health, and profound humility.
And the ultimate purpose is not accumulating data, but knowing the divine knower, al-alim and al-khair. This recognition mandates self-awareness, deep humility, and the diligent application of everything you learn, always remembering that severe warning against accumulating knowledge without good action.
We began by discussing the two types of insatiable seekers, the one seeking the world, the dunya, and the one seeking knowledge, ilm. Since the knowledge we acquire is eternal as a spiritual legacy, a continuous charity that remains even after death, and the wealth we seek is temporary and fleeting, how does this ancient contrast redefine your personal definition of a fulfilling and insatiable life pursuit? When you feel that drive for more, what kind of treasure are you prioritizing today?